A split-second decision. 4 attackers closing in, and a single father who refused to look away. On a glittering autumn evening at the city's most exclusive charity gala, a quiet single dad working security detail witnesses something that turns celebration into chaos. 4 men moving with deadly precision toward a powerful female CEO, her bodyguards nowhere in sight. What begins as one interrupted assault unfolds into a breathtaking journey of courage, unexpected connection, and a conspiracy that reaches far beyond the ballroom's crystal chandeliers. From a former soldier who traded his uniform for a simple life, raising his brilliant teenage daughter, to a tech empire CEO who's never needed saving before. This is the story of how strangers become allies, how danger reveals character, and how one act of bravery can spark a chain reaction that changes everything. Because sometimes, the right person shows up at exactly the right moment. Not because they planned to be a hero, but because they simply couldn't stand by and do nothing. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed. Because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. The autumn air carried a crisp promise of change as the city's elite gathered at the Obsidian Hall, a monument of glass and polished black granite that rose like a cathedral on the edge of Harborview Plaza. Inside, the annual Catalyst Foundation Gala was in full swing. Crystal chandeliers cast prismatic light across the marble floors, a string orchestra played Vivaldi, and champagne flowed like liquid gold into delicate flutes. Hunter Tate stood near the east entrance, his posture relaxed, but his eyes constantly scanning. The dark suit he wore fit well enough, though he'd never quite gotten comfortable in formal wear. Give him jeans and a work shirt any day. But tonight, he was working security detail for Sentinel Protection Services, a job that paid better than his usual carpentry work and kept food on the table for him and his daughter. 15-year-old Clara Tate sat at a corner table partially hidden behind an elaborate ice sculpture of a phoenix. Her honey-colored hair was pulled into a neat braid, and she wore a simple navy dress that her father had insisted was appropriate for the venue. In her lap, a tablet glowed softly as her fingers moved across the screen with practiced precision. She wasn't playing games. Clara was mapping the venue's security network, a puzzle she'd started solving the moment they arrived. Hunter had long ago stopped being surprised by his daughter's abilities. Since she was young, Clara had possessed an uncanny gift for seeing patterns others missed, for understanding systems both digital and human. Her teachers called it exceptional. Hunter called it a blessing, especially after her mother's death 5 years ago had left him navigating single parenthood with no manual and plenty of fear. "Dad." Clara's voice came through the discreet earpiece he wore. "The security system has a weird lag on the northwest camera grid. It's cycling every 47 seconds instead of 30. Someone tweaked the refresh rate." Hunter's jaw tightened slightly. "Could be a glitch." "Could be," Clara replied, though her tone suggested she didn't believe it. "But it creates a blind spot. Just thought you should know." He nodded subtly, his gaze sweeping toward the northwest corner, where a service door led to the kitchen corridors. Nothing seemed amiss, but Clara's instincts had proven reliable more times than he could count. The evening centerpiece was Scylla Harmon, founder and CEO of Meridian Technologies, a company that had revolutionized data security for financial institutions worldwide. She stood near the center of the ballroom, elegant in an emerald gown that seemed to shimmer with each movement. Her dark hair was swept up in an intricate twist, and when she laughed at something a board member said, the sound carried genuine warmth. Hunter had read about her in the briefing. Self-made billionaire. Started her company in a studio apartment with nothing but a laptop and an idea. Now she employed thousands and had been named one of the most influential people in technology. She also had a reputation for fierce independence and a refusal to compromise her principles, which had made her both admired and, in some circles, deeply resented. Her security detail, two broad-shouldered men in dark suits, stood nearby but not close. They seemed relaxed, confident in the controlled environment of the gala. Perhaps too relaxed. Hunter's attention shifted as movement near the service entrance caught his eye. 4 men had emerged, all wearing the burgundy vests of catering staff. But something was wrong. Their movements were too synchronized, too purposeful. They weren't carrying trays or glasses, and their eyes were locked on one target, Scylla Harmon. Hunter's military training snapped into focus like a rifle scope finding its mark. He recognized the pattern instantly. Box formation, coordinated approach. These weren't waiters. "Clara," he said quietly, already moving. "Call building security. Tell them we have a situation near the main stage." "What's happening?" "Just do it, now." The 4 men were closing in, weaving through clusters of guests with practiced ease. Scylla's bodyguards hadn't noticed yet, distracted by a commotion near the bar where someone had apparently dropped a tray of glasses. Convenient timing. Too convenient. Hunter moved faster, his path calculated to intercept. 20 feet, 15. The lead attacker's hand moved toward his vest, and Hunter caught the glint of something metallic. 10 feet. The man's fingers closed around whatever weapon he'd concealed. 5 feet. Hunter didn't shout a warning. That would only cause panic and give the attackers a chance to adapt. Instead, he did what years of combat experience had taught him. He acted. He hit lead attacker with the full force of his shoulder, a controlled tackle that sent the man sprawling into a dessert table. Chocolate mousse and shattered porcelain exploded across the floor. The weapon, a tactical knife with a 6-inch blade, skittered away under a chair. The ballroom erupted in shocked gasps and screams. The other 3 attackers reacted instantly, abandoning subtlety. One lunged at Scylla, who stumbled backward in her heels, eyes wide with shock. Hunter pivoted, grabbed the attacker's extended arm, and used his momentum against him, sending him crashing into the second man. The 4th attacker was faster, more skilled. He came at Hunter with a calculated strike aimed at the throat. Hunter blocked it, felt the impact shudder up his forearm, and countered with a precise elbow to the man's solar plexus. The attacker doubled over, gasping. But the first man was already recovering, pulling another knife. Hunter's mind raced through scenarios. 4 opponents. Crowded room, civilians everywhere. This could turn into a massacre if he wasn't careful. Scylla's bodyguards finally reacted, rushing forward with weapons drawn, but they were still seconds away. Seconds that could mean everything. Hunter grabbed a silver serving tray from a nearby table and used it as a shield, deflecting the knife thrust. The blade scraped metal with a harsh screech. He slammed the tray into the attacker's face, heard the crunch of impact, and the man went down hard. 2 down, injured, but conscious. 2 still active. The 3rd attacker made a grab for Scylla, who had frozen in terror. Hunter moved between them, taking a glancing blow to his ribs that would leave a bruise, but didn't slow him. He caught the man's wrist, twisted it with controlled force until the joint gave, and the attacker cried out, collapsing to his knees. The 4th, the skilled one, had recovered enough to make one more attempt. He feinted left, then drove forward with surprising speed. Hunter sidestepped, but not quite fast enough. The punch connected with his jaw, snapping his head back. Stars burst across his vision. The taste of copper filled his mouth. But he'd taken worse hits, much worse. Hunter shook it off, and delivered a straight punch to the attacker's sternum, followed by a sweep that took the man's legs out from under him. The attacker hit the marble floor with a solid thud and didn't get up. The entire confrontation had lasted less than 30 seconds. Scylla's bodyguards reached them, weapons trained on the four groaning men scattered across the floor. Other security personnel swarmed in, guests backed away in frightened clusters, and someone was shouting for police. Hunter stood in the center of it all, breathing hard, his jaw throbbing, his suit torn at the shoulder. He looked at Scylla Harmon, who stared back at him with a mixture of shock and something else. Recognition, perhaps, that she'd just been seconds away from something terrible. "Are you hurt?" Hunter asked, his voice steady despite the adrenaline still flooding his system. Scylla shook her head slowly, unable to speak. Clara appeared at his side, tablet clutched to her chest, her face pale. "Dad, are you okay?" He nodded, placing a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "I'm fine, sweetheart." But as hotel security began restraining the attackers and police sirens wailed in the distance, Hunter knew one thing with absolute certainty. This wasn't random. This was planned, professional. And whoever sent these four men wouldn't stop just because their first attempt had failed. The Obsidian Hall's grand ballroom had transformed from an elegant celebration into a crime scene. Police officers moved through the crowd, taking statements, their radios crackling with urgent chatter. Paramedics attended to the four attackers, all of whom were now handcuffed and surrounded by armed officers. Camera flashes from news photographers illuminated the scene in harsh bursts of white light. Hunter Tate sat on the edge of a velvet sofa in a private lounge adjacent to the ballroom, an ice pack pressed against his swelling jaw. Clara stood beside him, her earlier shock replaced by focused determination. She'd already pulled up the venue's security footage on her tablet, her fingers flying across the screen. Scylla Harmon paced near the window, her emerald gown swishing with each agitated step. Her bodyguards, looking decidedly embarrassed and angry, flanked the doorway. The lead bodyguard, a man named Alec Jennings, had already apologized 3 times. The distraction at the bar had been deliberate, he explained, timed perfectly to draw their attention away. Quick pause. Before we continue, tell us, where in the world are you watching from? If you're enjoying these stories, make sure to hit subscribe, because tomorrow's episode is absolutely mind-blowing. "I need to understand what just happened," Scylla said, finally stopping her pacing to face Hunter. Her voice carried the authority of someone used to demanding answers and getting them. Those men weren't random muggers. They moved like professionals. Hunter lowered the ice pack. They were professionals. Military training, probably private security or mercenary background. The way they coordinated, the box formation approach, that's not something you learn from YouTube videos. "How do you know that?" Scylla asked, studying him with sharp gray eyes that missed nothing. "Because I used to teach those tactics," Hunter replied simply. "Marine Corps, Force Recon, spent 8 years in before I came home." Something shifted in Scylla's expression, a flicker of understanding. "And now you work security at Gala's?" "And build furniture," Hunter added. "I'm a carpenter most days. Tonight was just a side job." Clara looked up from her tablet. "Dad, you need to see this." Hunter moved to stand beside his daughter, Scylla joining them. The tablet screen showed security footage from multiple angles, time-stamped from 20 minutes before the attack. "Watch here," Clara said, pointing to the northwest entrance. 4 men enter through the service door at 8:47 p.m., but look at the entry log. She pulled up another window. According to the digital system, no one entered through that door between 8:30 and 9:15. The footage and the log don't match. Someone altered the logs, Scylla said, her voice tight with controlled anger. Not just altered, Clara continued, her fingers highlighting sections of code. They inserted a ghost protocol. The cameras kept recording, but the access system was told to ignore specific individuals. It's sophisticated work. Whoever did this knew exactly how Obsidian Hall's security system operates. Alec Jennings stepped forward. That's supposed to be impossible. The system has triple encryption and requires biometric authentication for any administrative changes. Clara glanced at him. Nothing's impossible. It just requires the right access and knowledge. She tapped another section of the screen. And look at this. The catering uniforms they wore. Those are authentic, not knockoffs. Same manufacturer, same embroidered logo, same fabric weight. They had inside access to either the vendor or the venue's inventory. Hunter felt a cold certainty settling in his gut. This wasn't opportunistic. Someone planned this operation, probably over weeks. They studied the security system, acquired authentic uniforms, coordinated the timing perfectly. But why? Scylla asked, though her tone suggested she already had theories. Why attack me at a charity gala? If someone wanted to hurt me, there are easier opportunities. Maybe that's exactly the point, Hunter said. Public venue. Witnesses everywhere. If they'd succeeded, it sends a specific message. Not just that you're vulnerable, but that you're vulnerable even surrounded by your own security. Even at an event meant to celebrate your philanthropy. Scylla's face hardened. Someone wants to humiliate me as much as hurt me. Clara zoomed in on one of the attackers' faces. Can I suggest something? Please, Scylla said. We should check if these men have any connection to your business rivals or anyone with a grudge. Dad's right that this was too organized to be random, which means someone funded it. Professional mercenaries don't work cheap. A sharp knock interrupted them. A detective entered. A woman in her early 40s with iron-gray hair pulled into a tight bun. Her badge identified her as Detective Edith Walsh, NYPD Major Crimes. Ms. Harmon, Walsh said, her voice carrying the weary authority of someone who'd seen too many crime scenes. I need your full statement, and you. She turned to Hunter. That was some impressive work out there. You former military? Yes, ma'am. Marine Corps. Walsh's expression softened slightly. Well, thank you for your service and for keeping this from becoming a murder scene. But I need to know everything you observed, every detail. For the next 20 minutes, Hunter walked Detective Walsh through the attack. From the moment he spotted the coordinated approach to the final takedown. Clara provided the digital evidence, showing the detective the manipulated security logs and the ghost protocol. Walsh studied the footage with growing concern. This level of sophistication suggests organized crime or corporate espionage. Ms. Harmon, I need a list of anyone who might benefit from your company's disruption or your personal harm. Scylla's laugh was bitter. Detective, I run a data security company that protects billions of dollars. That list would be longer than you'd want to read. But I'll have my legal team compile the most likely candidates. Do that, Walsh said. In the meantime, I'm assigning protective detail until we can determine the extent of the threat. After the detective left, Scylla turned to Hunter and Clara. I owe you both more than a simple thank you. You saved my life tonight. Hunter shook his head. Anyone would have done the same. No, Scylla said firmly. Most people would have frozen or run. You moved toward danger, not away from it. And your daughter? She smiled at Clara. You're remarkably talented. The way you dissected that security system, found patterns trained analysts might have missed. That's exceptional. Clara's cheeks flushed. I just like puzzles. Well, your puzzles might have just uncovered something much bigger than tonight's attack, Scylla said. She turned back to Hunter. I'd like to hire you. Both of you, actually. I need people I can trust, people who've already proven their loyalty and skill. My regular security clearly missed something fundamental if these attackers got this close. Hunter hesitated. Ms. Harmon, I appreciate the offer, but I'm a carpenter and part-time security guard, not a bodyguard. And Clara's a teenager with school and a life beyond solving corporate conspiracies. I understand your reservations, Scylla said. But consider this. Whoever planned tonight's attack knows they failed. They know you intervened. That makes you and Clara potential targets, too. They'll want to know how much you saw, what you know, whether you're a threat to whatever larger plan they're executing. The words hung heavy in the air. Hunter hadn't considered that angle, but Scylla was right. By intervening, he'd painted a target on both their backs. Clara touched his arm. Dad, she has a point. And besides, don't you want to know who did this? Who would plan something this elaborate? Hunter looked at his daughter, saw the intelligence and determination in her eyes, the same stubborn courage her mother had possessed. He thought about the 4 men with their synchronized attack, the ghost protocol in the security system, the professional precision of it all. Someone had planned this carefully. Someone with resources and ruthlessness. And that someone was still out there. All right, Hunter said finally. But we do this smart. No unnecessary risks, and Clara's safety is non-negotiable. Scylla nodded. Agreed. We'll start tomorrow. Tonight you both should go home, rest, process what happened. I'll have my team compile everything we know about potential threats, and we'll meet at my office at Meridian Technologies. As they prepared to leave, Clara pulled her father aside. Dad, I found something else in the security code. Something I didn't want to say in front of everyone. What? Her voice dropped to a whisper. The ghost protocol? It wasn't just inserted tonight. It's been in the system for 3 weeks. Someone's been watching Ms. Harmon for a long time, learning her patterns, waiting for the right moment. Hunter's blood ran cold. This wasn't just a sophisticated attack. It was a patient one. And patient enemies were often the most dangerous. The morning sun cut through the towering glass facade of Meridian Technologies, turning the 50-story building into a beacon of light above the city's financial district. Hunter Tate guided his aging pickup truck into the underground parking garage. Feeling distinctly out of place among the sleek electric vehicles and luxury sedans that filled the executive level. Clara sat beside him, her backpack stuffed with 3 laptops and an array of cables. She'd barely slept, spending most of the night analyzing the security footage and digging into the digital traces left by whoever had compromised Obsidian Hall's system. You didn't have to miss school for this, Hunter said, though he knew the protest was half-hearted. Dad, my AP computer science teacher would probably give me extra credit if I wrote about penetration testing a corporate security network. Clara replied with a slight smile. Besides, this is way more interesting than calculus. They took a private elevator to the 48th floor, where Scylla's executive office occupied a corner suite with panoramic views of the harbor. The receptionist, a young man with impeccable posture, greeted them warmly and escorted them through a maze of glass-walled conference rooms and open workspace areas buzzing with quiet productivity. Scylla's office was surprisingly understated. Yes, the view was spectacular, but the furniture was functional rather than ostentatious. Bookshelves lined one wall, filled with technical manuals and biographies of historical figures. A large whiteboard covered another wall, dense with equations and flowcharts in multiple colors of marker. Scylla herself sat at a modern desk, her attention focused on 3 monitors displaying streams of data. She wore a charcoal business suit today, her dark hair pulled back in a practical ponytail. When they entered, she looked up and her serious expression softened slightly. "Hunter, Clara, thank you for coming," she said, standing to shake their hands. "I hope you both got some rest." "Enough," Hunter replied, though the purple bruise along his jawline suggested otherwise. Also present were Alec Jennings, Scylla's head of security, and a woman Hunter hadn't met before. She was perhaps 60, with silver hair cut in a sharp bob and eyes that radiated sharp intelligence. She wore a navy blazer over a white blouse and introduced herself with a firm handshake. "Kiana Ford, Chief Information Security Officer," she said. "I've spent the last 12 hours dissecting what happened to our security system at Obsidian Hall, and I'll be honest, it's some of the most sophisticated penetration work I've seen outside of nation-state actors." Clara's eyes lit up. "Did you trace the source of the ghost protocol?" Kiana smiled, recognizing a kindred spirit. "I traced it to 7 different proxy servers across 4 continents, all of which turned out to be compromised routers in small businesses whose owners have no idea their systems were being used. Dead ends, essentially. Whoever did this knows how to cover their tracks." "But they did leave tracks," Clara said, pulling out one of her laptops. "I found something last night. May I?" Scylla gestured to the conference table, and they all gathered around as Clara connected her laptop to the large display screen on the wall. Code cascaded across the screen, dense and complex. "This is the ghost protocol from Obsidian Hall," Clara explained, highlighting sections with quick keystrokes. "Now look at this." She pulled up another window. 3 months ago, there was a minor security incident at Harborview Plaza, the shopping district near Obsidian Hall. Someone hacked into the traffic camera network. Police investigated, found nothing, wrote it off as kids messing around. "But it wasn't kids," Kiana said, leaning forward. "No," Clara confirmed. "Look at the code signature. Same encryption pattern, same routing structure, same preference for East Asian proxy servers. It's not identical, but it's close enough to suggest the same person or team." Hunter watched the 2 of them work, their technical discussion flowing in a language he only partially understood. But he understood the implications. "You're saying someone's been probing the area's security infrastructure for months, testing defenses, learning the systems." "Exactly," Clara said. "And there's more. I cross-referenced recent security breaches within a 5-mile radius of Obsidian Hall. In the last 6 months, there have been 11 separate incidents. Most were written off as unrelated, minor nuisances. But when you map them together, they form a pattern." She pulled up a digital map, red dots marking each incident location. They formed a loose circle with Obsidian Hall near the center. "Someone was mapping the entire security ecosystem," Scylla said quietly. "Not just the venue, but the surrounding infrastructure. Traffic cameras, police response routes, communication networks." Alec Jennings spoke up, his voice tight with frustration. "This level of planning suggests a significant operation. These aren't amateurs or opportunistic criminals. Someone invested substantial time and resources." Hunter crossed his arms. "Which brings us back to the key question. Why? What's valuable enough about attacking Miss Harmon at that specific gala to justify this level of effort? Scylla walked to the window, staring out at the harbor where cargo ships moved like slow-moving chess pieces. I've been thinking about that all night. The Catalyst Foundation Gala wasn't just a charity event. It was also where I planned to announce Meridian's upcoming merger with Titanium Security, a European firm. Plan to announce? Hunter picked up on the past tense. I decided this morning to postpone the announcement, Scylla said. Until we understand the threat, I'm not making myself or my company more vulnerable than we already are. Kiana pulled up a new file on the screen. I took the liberty of compiling a list of parties who would be negatively impacted by the Meridian Titanium merger. It's extensive. Competitors who would lose market share, smaller firms that would be squeezed out, even some government contracts that would shift away from current providers. The list scrolled on for pages. Names of corporations, investment groups, even foreign entities with vested interests in the current market structure. Clara studied the list, then pulled up another window. Can you get me financial transaction data for these companies? Specifically, any unusual payments or transfers in the last 3 months? Kiana raised an eyebrow. That's confidential information, most of it proprietary or even classified. I know, Clara said calmly. But if someone hired those 4 men last night, money changed hands. Professional mercenaries don't work for free, and that kind of expertise costs serious money. If we can find an unusual financial transaction, we can start tracing backward. Scylla and Kiana exchanged a look. Finally, Scylla nodded. Kiana, give her access to whatever public records we can legally obtain. If Clara needs to probe deeper, we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. For the next hour, the group worked in focused intensity. Kiana and Clara dove into financial databases, cross-referencing transactions and looking for anomalies. Alec coordinated with Detective Walsh, sharing what they'd discovered and receiving updates on the 4 captured attackers, none of whom had said a word since their arrest. Hunter reviewed physical security protocols with Scylla, identifying vulnerabilities in her daily routine and suggesting immediate changes. Where she normally walked the 2 blocks from her apartment to a private gym each morning, he recommended using the building's secure underground parking and varying her schedule. Where she typically ate lunch at the same 3 restaurants near the office, he suggested rotating through different locations unpredictably. You're asking me to become a prisoner of my own security precautions, Scylla said, though her tone carried understanding rather than complaint. I'm asking you to stay alive, Hunter replied. At least until we know who's behind this and neutralize the threat. Clara suddenly gasped. I found something. Everyone gathered around her screen. She'd pulled up financial records for a shell corporation registered in the Cayman Islands, a company with the deliberately generic name of Summit Holdings International. 3 weeks ago, Clara said, her finger tracing a line of transactions. Summit Holdings transferred $2 million to a private military contractor called Apex Strategic Solutions. Apex operates globally, providing security services, but they're also known for less savory work. Mercenaries, Hunter said. High-end ones, Kiana confirmed, pulling up Apex's profile. Former special forces from multiple countries. They've been linked to corporate espionage, sabotage, even assassinations, though nothing's ever been proven in court. Who owns Summit Holdings? Scylla asked. Clara shook her head. That's the problem. It's buried under 6 layers of shell companies and legal trusts. It would take weeks to untangle, maybe longer if they've been careful about covering tracks. But now we know the attack was funded, Hunter said. Which means we're dealing with someone wealthy enough to move millions of dollars through offshore accounts and connected enough to hire Apex. Alec's phone buzzed. He stepped away to take the call, returning a moment later with a grim expression. That was Detective Walsh. The 4 attackers from last night? They all lawyered up immediately, refused to talk, and their fingerprints matched names in international databases. 3 of them are confirmed former Apex operatives. The confirmation hung heavy in the room. What had started as a violent assault at a gala had revealed itself as something far more organized and dangerous. Scylla turned to Hunter. "This is bigger than I thought. You and Clara shouldn't be involved in this. It's too dangerous." But Clara was already shaking her head. "With respect, Ms. Harmon, we're already involved. Whoever hired Apex knows that Dad stopped their attack. If they're willing to spend $2 million on one attempt, they'll spend more to finish the job. Our safest option is to figure out who they are before they try again." Hunter looked at his daughter, torn between pride at her courage and fear for her safety. But he knew she was right. Walking away now wouldn't make them safer. It would just make them easier targets. "Then we keep digging," he said. "But we do it smart and we do it together. All of us." Scylla nodded slowly. "Agreed. Kiana, keep tracing the money. Clara, see if you can find any other patterns in the security breaches. Alec, coordinate with NYPD and make sure we're getting real-time updates. Hunter, you and I need to talk about expanding security measures, not just for me, but for everyone in this room." As they dispersed to their tasks, Hunter caught Scylla's eye. Something unspoken passed between them, an acknowledgement that they'd crossed a threshold. This was no longer just about stopping one attack. It was about dismantling an entire operation before it could strike again. And somewhere out there, whoever had hired Apex was already planning their next move. The next 48 hours moved with the relentless pace of a storm gathering strength. Hunter and Clara had temporarily relocated to a secure apartment within Meridian Technologies' headquarters building, a decision Scylla insisted on after Detective Walsh confirmed that someone had been surveilling Hunter's modest home in Brookhaven Heights. The evidence was subtle but undeniable. Fresh tire tracks in the alley behind his house, a neighbor's security camera mysteriously offline for a 3-hour window, and a discarded cigarette butt that forensics matched to a brand popular in Eastern Europe. They weren't just targets of opportunity. They were being actively hunted. Clara had transformed the apartment's dining room into a makeshift operations center. 3 laptops arranged in a semicircle with cables snaking across the hardwood floor. She'd barely slept, fueled by energy drinks and the thrill of the hunt. Her screens displayed cascading data: financial transactions, security camera, footage, satellite imagery of Apex Strategic Solutions' known operational bases. Hunter sat across from her, reviewing tactical assessments Alec had compiled. But his mind kept returning to a fundamental question that nagged at him like an old wound. Why go through all this elaborate planning just to attack Scylla at a public gala? If Apex wanted her dead, there were dozens of easier methods. The public nature of the attempt suggested something more than simple assassination. "Dad, look at this," Clara said, breaking his concentration. She pulled up a news article from 2 years ago. Meridian Technologies testified before Congress about security vulnerabilities in the financial sector. Scylla personally presented evidence that 3 major banks had been compromised by foreign actors. Her testimony led to stricter regulations and about $40 billion in required security upgrades. Hunter scanned the article. That would make powerful enemies. "Exactly," Clara said. "But here's where it gets interesting. One of those banks, Pinnacle International, fought the regulations hard. They hired an army of lobbyists, tried to discredit Scylla's findings, even filed lawsuits claiming her testimony damaged their reputation. And they lost everything. Public confidence collapsed, their stock tanked, and within a year they were acquired by a competitor for a fraction of their former value. Clara pulled up another window. But before they collapsed, Pinnacle transferred almost $300 million to various offshore accounts. Money that was supposed to be used for security compliance just vanished. Hunter leaned forward. You think Pinnacle's executives are funding the attacks? I think someone with access to Pinnacle's hidden money is funding them, Clara corrected. The bank itself is defunct, but the people who ran it, who lost everything because of Scylla's testimony, they're still out there. And they're very, very angry. A sharp knock interrupted them. Scylla entered, followed by Kiana Ford and an unfamiliar man. He was perhaps 50, with silver temples, and the kind of expensive suit that whispered rather than shouted wealth. His eyes were cold and calculating. Hunter, Clara, this is Miles Bowen, Scylla said. He's a private investigator I've used before for sensitive corporate matters. I've briefed him on everything we know. Miles shook their hands with a grip that was firm but not aggressive. Ms. Harmon speaks highly of both of you. I understand you've been making progress on the financial trail. Clara walked him through her findings about Pinnacle International. Miles listened intently, occasionally asking sharp questions that revealed a mind accustomed to parsing complex information quickly. Pinnacle had 4 senior executives, Miles said when she finished. 3 of them took plea deals on fraud charges and are currently serving time. But the 4th, the chief financial officer, disappeared before charges could be filed. His name is Seth Newman. Kiana pulled up Newman's profile on the main screen. The image showed a lean man in his early 40s, with angular features and eyes that held no warmth. His resume was impressive. Harvard MBA, 20 years in high-level finance. Known for ruthless efficiency and an ability to make difficult decisions without hesitation. Newman was the one who actually moved Pinnacle's money offshore. Miles continued. Federal investigators suspected he embezzled at least $200 million before vanishing. There's an outstanding warrant, but he's been off the grid for 18 months. No credit card use, no passport activity, no digital footprint whatsoever. Until 3 weeks ago, Clara said, her fingers flying across her keyboard. She pulled up the Summit Holdings transactions again. The shell company that paid Apex? I traced it back further. It connects to a trust registered in Newman's wife's maiden name. It's buried deep, but the connection is there. Scylla's face hardened. So Newman blames me for destroying Pinnacle, losing his career, and forcing him into hiding. And now he's using the money he stole to come after me. It fits, Hunter said. A man like Newman wouldn't just want you dead. He'd want you humiliated first, attacked in public, made to feel vulnerable in front of the world that watched him fall. Miles nodded approvingly. That's good tactical thinking. But here's the problem. Even if we're right about Newman being behind this, we still don't know where he is. And without that, we can't stop whatever he's planning next. Actually, Clara said, a slight smile playing at her lips. I might have an idea about that. She pulled up satellite imagery showing a sprawling estate on the coast, perhaps 60 miles north of the city. The property was surrounded by high walls and dense forest, with a private dock extending into the ocean. This is Thornhill Estate, Clara explained. It used to be owned by a shell company linked to Pinnacle International. According to property records, it was sold 18 months ago, right around the time Newman disappeared. The buyer? Another shell company, this one registered in the same offshore jurisdiction as Summit Holdings. Hunter studied the satellite images. You think Newman's been hiding there this whole time? It makes sense, Clara said. It's isolated but close enough to the city to coordinate operations. The estate has its own power generation, water systems, even a helipad. Someone could live there indefinitely without being noticed. Kiana frowned. This is all circumstantial. We don't have proof Newman is actually there. No, Miles agreed. But we can get proof. I have contacts who can conduct surveillance, thermal imaging, electronic monitoring. If someone's living at Thornhill Estate, we'll know within 24 hours. Scylla looked to Hunter. What do you think? Hunter considered the satellite images, his military training analyzing angles of approach, defensive positions, potential complications. If Newman is there, he won't be alone. A man with his resources would have security, probably former military or law enforcement. We'd need to approach this carefully. We bring in the police, Scylla said firmly. If we can confirm Newman is there, Detective Walsh can coordinate with federal agents. They have the authority and resources to handle this properly. But even as she spoke, Hunter saw something flicker across Miles's face. A hesitation. A calculation. What? Hunter asked. Miles chose his words carefully. There's a complication. Seth Newman has connections, including friends in various law enforcement agencies. If we alert the police and word leaks before they can move, Newman will disappear again. And next time, we won't find him. The room fell silent as everyone processed the implications. They were close to identifying their enemy, but taking the wrong step could send him underground permanently. We do this in stages, Hunter said. Miles conducts surveillance, confirms Newman's presence. Meanwhile, Kiana and Clara keep digging into his financial networks, finding evidence we can use to build an airtight case. Once we have everything in place, we bring in Detective Walsh and coordinate a simultaneous action. Arrest Newman and freeze his assets so he can't fund any more attacks. Scylla nodded slowly. How long will that take? 48 hours, Miles said. Maybe 72 if we're careful. Then we have 3 days, Scylla said. 3 days to build a case and end this before Newman tries again. That night, as Hunter stood on the apartment balcony watching the city lights flicker like distant stars, Clara joined him. She'd finally stepped away from her computers, exhaustion beginning to show in the dark circles under her eyes. You should sleep, Hunter said. So should you, Clara replied. She leaned against the railing beside him. Dad, what if we're wrong? What if Newman isn't at Thornhill Estate? What if this is all just a wild theory? Hunter put his arm around her shoulders. Then we keep looking. But your instincts have been right about everything so far. Trust yourself. They stood in comfortable silence for a moment before Clara spoke again. Mom would have liked this, you know? The puzzle of it all. She was always better at seeing patterns than anyone. Hunter's throat tightened. His late wife, Elena, had been a systems analyst, brilliant with both people and data. She'd died in a car accident 5 years ago, leaving a hole in their lives that sometimes still felt raw. She'd be proud of you, Hunter said. The way you've handled all this, the courage you've shown. You're more like her every day. Clara smiled, but it was tinged with sadness. I miss her. Me too, sweetheart. Every day. A notification chimed on Clara's phone. She checked it, and her expression shifted to alert concern. Dad, Miles just sent preliminary thermal imaging from Thornhill Estate. There are at least 8 heat signatures inside the main house and 3 in the guest cottage. Someone's definitely living there, and they have company. Hunter's jaw tightened. 8 people meant serious security, probably armed and trained. If Newman was there, extracting him wouldn't be simple. His phone buzzed. A text from Scylla. "Conference room. Now, we have a problem." They hurried back inside and took the elevator down to Meridian's executive floor. In the secure conference room, they found Scylla, Kiana, Alec, and Miles gathered around the display screen. Detective Walsh was on a video call, her expression grim. "We have a situation," Walsh said without preamble. About an hour ago, 2 of the 4 attackers from the Gala were released on bail. High-powered lawyers showed up with a judge's order. The bail was set at $5 million each, and someone paid it in cash. Hunter felt ice settle in his stomach. Newman is making moves. "It gets worse," Walsh continued. 30 minutes after their release, both men disappeared. We had surveillance on them, but they gave our people the slip. They're in the wind. "They're going back to Newman," Clara said. "He pulled them out because he needs them for something." Miles pulled up the thermal imaging from Thornhill Estate. "Whatever Newman is planning, he's mobilizing resources. We're running out of time." Scylla's face was pale but determined. "Then we move faster. Miles, I want 24-hour surveillance on Thornhill Estate. Any movement, any communication, I want to know immediately. Kiana, Clara, find me everything on Newman's financial network. Every account, every asset. If he's going to strike again, he'll need to move money first." "And what about me?" Hunter asked. Scylla met his eyes. "You and Alec are going to plan for the worst-case scenario. If Newman comes for us before we can get to him, I want to be ready." As the team dispersed to their assignments, Hunter caught Scylla's arm gently. "This is escalating fast. Newman released his men because he's preparing for something big. Whatever he's planning, it's going to happen soon." Scylla's gray eyes held steady. "Then we make sure we're ready when it does." But as Hunter returned to the apartment and watched Clara dive back into her research with fierce determination, he couldn't shake the feeling that they were racing toward a confrontation none of them were fully prepared for. And that somewhere in the darkness, Seth Newman was counting on exactly that. The call came at 3 a.m, shattering the fragile quiet of the secure apartment. Hunter was instantly awake, years of military conditioning snapping him from sleep to full alertness in seconds. He grabbed his phone, saw Miles Bowen's name on the screen. "They're moving," Miles said without preamble. 4 vehicles just left Thornhill Estate heading south toward the city. Thermal imaging confirms at least 12 individuals, possibly more. "This is it, Hunter. They're coming." Hunter was already moving, pulling on clothes, his mind shifting into tactical mode. "Where's Scylla?" "Her apartment in the Prescott building, 44th floor. Alec is with her, plus 2 additional security personnel. But if Newman is bringing 12 people, that's not going to be enough." "I'm on my way," Hunter said, already heading for Clara's room. She was awake too, sitting up in bed with her laptop open, somehow already aware that something was wrong. "I heard," she said. "Dad, I'm coming with you." "No," Hunter said firmly. "You stay here where it's secure. Lock the door behind me and don't open it for anyone except me or Scylla, understood?" For a moment, Clara looked like she wanted to argue, but she saw the fear beneath her father's determination. Fear not for himself, but for her. She nodded. "Be careful." Hunter grabbed the tactical vest Alec had provided, checked the stun baton and pepper spray, the only weapons Scylla's security team could legally provide to a civilian contractor. Then he was out the door, taking the stairs down to the parking garage rather than waiting for the elevator. The drive to Prescott Building took 8 minutes, every red light an agony of lost time. Hunter called Alec en route, coordinating their defensive plan. The building had excellent security, but it was designed to keep out opportunistic criminals, not a coordinated assault by professional mercenaries. He pulled into the underground parking garage at 3:17 a.m., showed his credentials to the night security guard, and took the express elevator to the 44th floor. The hallway was plush and quiet, thick carpet muffling his footsteps as he approached Scylla's apartment. Alec opened the door before Hunter could knock. "They're 15 minutes out, according to traffic cameras. We've locked down the building's main entrances, but there are service access points that are harder to secure." Inside, Scylla stood by the window, wearing workout clothes and a determined expression. 2 security guards, both former police officers, checked weapons and reviewed building schematics. The atmosphere was tense but controlled. "You didn't have to come," Scylla said to Hunter. "You could have stayed with Clara where it's safe." "This is where I need to be," Hunter replied simply. His phone buzzed, a text from Clara. "Dad, I'm monitoring their approach through traffic cameras. They split into 2 groups. One is heading to Prescott Building, but the other turned toward Meridian Technologies, toward your apartment." Hunter's blood turned to ice. "They're not just coming for Scylla. They're coming for all of us." He immediately called the secure apartment, but there was no answer. He tried Clara's cell. It rang once, twice, then went to voicemail. "They've jammed communications around the building." Kiana's voice came through on a separate secure line she'd established. "I'm tracking it now, but Hunter, Clara's not answering." Pure terror, sharper than anything he'd felt in combat, ripped through Hunter. His daughter was alone, and enemies were closing in. "I have to go," Hunter said, already moving toward the door. But Scylla grabbed his arm. "Hunter, if you leave now, I have 3 people to defend against 6 or more attackers. We need you here." He turned, torn between duty and love, between the woman he'd sworn to protect and the daughter who was his entire world. His training screamed at him to make the tactical decision. But his heart was already in the elevator, heading back to Clara. "Alec can hold this position," Hunter said. "Clara needs me." Scylla's expression shifted through several emotions in quick succession. Fear, understanding, resignation. Then she made a decision. "Then we all go. We consolidate at Meridian Technologies, defend 1 position instead of 2. It's more defensible anyway, and we can protect Clara and the research data." Alex started to protest, but Scylla cut him off. "That's not a suggestion, it's an order. Everyone, we move now." They took the service elevator down, moving as a tight unit with the security guards flanking Scylla. Hunter led, every sense alert for ambush. They reached the parking garage without incident, piled into 2 vehicles, and accelerated toward Meridian Technologies. The drive was less than 2 miles, but every second felt like an eternity. Hunter tried Clara's phone again, and again, each unanswered ring twisting the knife of fear deeper into his chest. They reached Meridian Technologies at 3:31 a.m. The building's night security looked confused by the sudden arrival of the CEO and her team, but Alec quickly brought them up to speed. Within minutes, the building was in lockdown mode, all entrances sealed except for 1 monitored access point. Hunter sprinted to the elevator, punching the button for the 32nd floor where the secure apartment was located. Scylla and Alec came with him, while the security guards established a defensive perimeter in the lobby. The elevator ride up was the longest of Hunter's life. When the doors finally opened, he ran down the hallway and found the apartment door slightly ajar. His heart stopped. He pushed it open slowly, tactically, ready for anything. The apartment was dark except for the glow of Clara's laptops. And there, sitting calmly at her workstation, surrounded by screens of cascading data, was his daughter. Unharmed, focused, completely absorbed in her work. She looked up as they entered, seemingly unbothered by the panic her silence had caused. "Oh, Dad. Sorry, I had to disable my phone to prevent them from using it to triangulate my exact location in the building. But look what I found." Relief and frustration warred in Hunter's chest, but relief won. He crossed the room and pulled her into a tight hug. "Don't ever do that to me again." "I won't," Clara said, hugging him back. Then she pulled away, excitement overriding fear. "But Dad, I cracked Newman's communication network. He's not just coming here, he's orchestrating something bigger. Look." She turned her laptop so they could all see. Multiple windows showed intercepted communications, financial transactions happening in real time, and a schematic of Meridian Technologies, with specific floors highlighted. "Newman isn't trying to kill anyone tonight," Clara explained rapidly. "He's trying to steal Meridian's core security algorithms, the ones Scylla developed and used to expose the banking vulnerabilities. With those algorithms, he could sell them to foreign governments or use them himself for massive financial fraud." Scylla leaned in, studying the data. "The server room. He's going after the physical servers on the 10th floor. That's where we keep the isolated backup systems. But to access them, he'd need biometric authentication," Kiana said, joining them. "Specifically your retinal scan and thumbprint, Scylla." A cold realization settled over everyone simultaneously. Newman wasn't coming to kill Scylla. He was coming to take her. Alex's radio crackled. "Contact at the East Service entrance. 6 individuals armed, attempting breach. Here we go," Hunter said, his fear for Clara transforming into cold, tactical focus. He turned to Scylla. "We get you somewhere safe, somewhere he can't reach you. Without your biometrics, Newman can't access the servers." "The executive safe room," Scylla said. 48th floor behind my office. It's designed to withstand assault and has independent communication systems." They moved as a unit, Hunter leading with Alec covering the rear. Clara stayed close to her father, for once not arguing about being protected. The stairwell echoed with their footsteps as they climbed rapidly. They reached the 48th floor and were moving toward Scylla's office when the lights cut out. Emergency systems kicked in a moment later, bathing everything in dim red light that turned the modern office into something from a nightmare. "They've cut main power," Alex said, "but they can't disable the emergency systems without triggering lockdowns throughout the building." A crash echoed from below. Shouting, the unmistakable sound of gunfire, muffled by distance, but still chilling. Hunter pushed them faster. They reached Scylla's office, and she quickly unlocked the hidden door behind her bookshelf. The safe room beyond was small but well-equipped. Reinforced walls, independent air supply, communication equipment, and supplies to last for days if necessary. "Everyone inside," Hunter ordered. But Scylla shook her head. "Not you. If Newman's men reach this floor, someone needs to slow them down. Give time for police to arrive. You're the only one with the training." "I'm not leaving you," Hunter said firmly. "You're not leaving me. You're protecting me by holding that door." Scylla placed her hand on his arm, her touch gentle but urgent. "Hunter, I trust you. Keep them away from this room. We all walk out of here alive." Alex stepped forward. "I'll stay with him. 2 is better than 1. Clara looked at her father, fear clear in her eyes, but also pride. Be careful, Dad. Hunter kissed her forehead. Always. Now get inside and lock it behind us. As the safe room door sealed shut with a heavy thunk, Hunter and Alec positioned themselves in Scylla's office. They had perhaps 3 minutes before Newman's team reached this floor. 3 minutes to prepare a defense against superior numbers with limited weapons. Alec checked his service weapon. Your daughter is remarkable, you know. The way she cracked Newman's communications found the pattern that saved us tonight. She's my whole world, Hunter said quietly, positioning furniture to create barriers and choke points. Everything I've done since her mother died has been about keeping her safe, giving her a chance at a good life. You've done more than that, Alex said. You've raised someone who'll change the world. Footsteps echoed in the stairwell, heavy boots moving with tactical precision. Hunter and Alec exchanged a look, years of professional understanding passing between them without words. Then the Yi-Yaw's doctor burst open and 6 men in tactical gear poured through. What followed was chaos compressed into seconds. Hunter moved on pure instinct, using the office furniture as weapons and shields. He took down the first man with the desk chair, the second with a precise strike to the knee that sent him crashing into his teammate. Alec engaged 2 others, his training evident in every movement. But they were outnumbered and outgunned. A fist caught Hunter in the ribs, driving the air from his lungs. He countered with an elbow strike, heard something crack. Another attacker grabbed him from behind, and Hunter used the momentum to throw them both backward into the wall. Somewhere in the chaos, he heard Alec go down with a grunt of pain. Then hands were pinning Hunter to the floor, zip ties cutting into his wrists. He struggled but couldn't break free. Around him, the tactical team secured the office with professional efficiency. A 7th man entered, and even in the dim emergency lighting, Hunter recognized him from the photos. Seth Newman. He was leaner than in his corporate headshot, harder, with the look of someone who'd been living on the edge for too long. Newman surveyed the scene with cold satisfaction. Where is she? When Hunter didn't answer, Newman nodded to one of his men, who pressed a pistol against Alec's temple. I'll ask once more, Newman said calmly. Where is Scylla Harmon? Hunter met his eyes with defiant silence. He'd survived interrogations before, withstood worse threats than this. But then Newman pulled out a tablet, and Hunter's blood turned to ice as he saw what was displayed. Surveillance footage from inside the safe room. Somehow, impossibly, Newman had access to the cameras Hunter hadn't even known existed. Technology's wonderful, isn't it? Newman said with a thin smile. I can see her right there, cowering with your daughter and the others. That safe room you thought was so secure. I had access to its systems installed 3 months ago, when I hired a contractor to do routine maintenance. He didn't know he was working for me, of course. But he gave me everything I needed. He turned to his team. Burn through the door. We're taking Ms. Harmon with us. As they moved toward the safe room with cutting torches, Hunter realized with sinking dread that they'd walked right into Newman's trap. He'd never planned to breach the building by force. He'd already been inside the defenses long ago, waiting for exactly this moment. And now there was nothing Hunter could do but watch as everything he'd tried to protect crumbled around him. The cutting torch sprayed brilliant sparks across Scylla's office, illuminating Seth Newman's cold smile in flickering orange light. Hunter struggled against the zip ties binding his wrists. But the plastic cut deeper with each movement, leaving raw burns on his skin. Beside him, Alec lay unconscious, blood seeping from a gash on his temple. Newman's tactical team worked with mechanical efficiency, one man holding the torch while another prepared to storm the safe room the moment the door failed. Hunter's mind raced through scenarios, each more desperate than the last. Clara was behind that door. Scylla, Kiana, and he was helpless to protect any of them. Then, unexpectedly, all the lights in the building came back on. Not just emergency lighting, but full power, bright and sudden and shocking after the dim red glow. Newman's head snapped up, irritation flashing across his features. What just happened? One of his men checked a tablet. "Sir, the building security system just rebooted. All of it, simultaneously." From inside the safe room, Hunter heard a sound that made his heart soar. Clara's voice, muffled but clear, speaking through the intercom system. "Mr. Newman, this is Clara Tate. You made a mistake when you accessed the safe room surveillance. You created a backdoor, and backdoors work both ways. I just locked down every system in this building, including the elevators you came up in and the exits you plan to use. NYPD is en route. ETA 4 minutes. You're trapped." Newman's expression shifted from annoyance to genuine alarm. He moved to the safe room door, speaking through the steel. "Clever. But I have your father and another man out here. Open this door voluntarily, or I'll execute them both." Silence. Then Scylla's voice replaced Clara's. "Seth, this is over. You can't access the servers without me, and you can't escape with police surrounding the building. Surrender now, and maybe you walk away from this with some dignity intact." Newman laughed, a harsh sound devoid of humor. "Dignity? You destroyed my dignity when you stood in front of Congress and eviscerated Pinnacle International. Do you know what it's like to watch your entire life collapse because one self-righteous crusader decided to play hero? I lost everything because of you. You lost everything because you committed fraud." Scylla countered, her voice carrying steel. "I exposed crimes you chose to commit. That's not on me, Seth. That's on you. Philosophical distinctions don't interest me," Newman said. He pulled a small device from his pocket, something that looked like a phone but with additional hardware attached. "What interests me is this. A remote electromagnetic pulse generator, strong enough to fry every electronic system in this room, including the locks on that safe room. Your daughter is clever, Ms. Harmon, but cleverness can't protect against raw physics." Hunter's stomach dropped. An EMP would disable everything, including the building's security systems. The door locks would fail, and Newman's team could simply walk in. But then Clara's voice returned, and this time it carried a hint of satisfaction that reminded Hunter so much of her mother. It hurt. "That would work, Mr. Newman, except for one small problem. While you were talking, I rerouted power from the building's backup generators to create a Faraday cage around this entire floor. Your EMP will just bounce off the shielding. But please, feel free to try. I'd love to see the look on your face when nothing happens." Newman's jaw clenched. He raised the device, pressed the activation button. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the device itself sparked and died in his hand, overloaded by its own reflected pulse. The tactical team exchanged uncertain glances. This wasn't going according to plan, and professional soldiers knew when to recognize a losing position. In the distance, sirens wailed, growing louder. Multiple vehicles, coming fast. Newman's face contorted with rage. He grabbed Hunter by the collar, hauling him to his feet, and pressed a pistol against his temple. "Final offer. Open the door, or I kill the father right here, right now." The intercom crackled. When Clara spoke again, her voice was small and frightened in a way that tore at Hunter's heart. "Dad?" "I'm okay, sweetheart," Hunter said, forcing calm into his voice despite the cold metal pressed against his skull. "Don't open that door. No matter what happens, you keep it closed. You hear me? Hunter, no. Scylla's voice broke through, anguished. Seth, please, take me. Let him go and I'll come with you voluntarily. Not good enough, Newman spat. I want everything. Access to the servers, safe passage out of the city, and $10 million transferred to my accounts. You have 60 seconds to decide. Or Mr. Tate's daughter learns what it's like to lose a parent. The seconds ticked by in agonizing silence. Hunter could hear his own heartbeat, feel the pressure of the gun barrel against his skin. He thought about Clara growing up without him, about all the things he'd never get to teach her, all the moments he'd miss. Then he thought about her mother, Elena, who'd taught him that some things were worth any sacrifice. Keeping Clara safe, protecting innocence, doing what was right, even when it cost everything. Don't open the door, Hunter said again, louder this time. Clara, I love you. Always have, always will. But don't you dare open that door. Tears thickened his daughter's voice. Dad, I can't lose you too. You won't, Hunter said with conviction he didn't entirely feel. Because you're stronger than you know, braver than you believe, and smarter than anyone I've ever met. You're going to be fine, sweetheart. You're going to do incredible things. The sirens were deafening now, practically outside the building. Newman's team was backing toward the exits, recognizing that their window was closing fast. Time's up, Newman said, and Hunter heard the click of the safety disengaging. Then the office door exploded inward as a flashbang grenade detonated with blinding light and deafening sound. SWAT team members in full tactical gear poured through, weapons raised, shouting commands. Newman tried to use Hunter as a shield, but Hunter threw himself backward, trusting the SWAT team's training. He hit the floor hard as gunfire erupted. Around him, controlled bursts that dropped Newman's men with precision. When the chaos cleared, Newman was on the ground, disarmed and surrounded. His tactical team was being zip-tied and read their rights. And standing in the doorway, Detective Edith Walsh surveyed the scene with grim satisfaction. Federal agents have been tracking Seth Newman for 18 months, Walsh said. When your daughter called in with his location and uploaded evidence of his crimes to our servers, we mobilized every available unit. You caught a very wanted man tonight. The safe room door opened, and Clara burst out, running straight to her father. Hunter caught her despite his bound wrists, holding her as tightly as he could while officers cut away the zip ties. I'm okay, he murmured into her hair. I'm okay, baby. You saved us. You saved everyone. Scylla emerged more slowly, her composed facade finally cracking to show the fear beneath. She looked at Hunter and Clara, then at the carnage of her office, and something profound shifted in her expression. Paramedics checked everyone over. Alec regained consciousness with a groan, confused but alive. Newman and his team were hauled away in handcuffs, while forensic teams swarmed the building documenting everything. As dawn broke over the city, Hunter and Clara sat in Scylla's conference room with blankets around their shoulders and cups of hot coffee warming their hands. The adrenaline was fading, leaving exhaustion in its wake. Scylla sat across from them, still wearing the workout clothes she'd never gotten to use, her hair disheveled, but her eyes bright with unshed tears. I almost got you both killed, she said quietly. You came into my life by accident, and I pulled you into a nightmare. I'm so sorry. Hunter shook his head. We made our choices. Clara and I, we could have walked away after the first attack. But we didn't. Because sometimes you meet people worth fighting for. The words hung in the air, heavy with meaning. Scylla met his eyes, and something unspoken passed between them. a recognition that what had started as chance had become something deeper. Clara, despite her exhaustion, managed a small smile. Plus, that was the most interesting week of my life. My AP computer science teacher is going to flip when I write this up for my final project. They all laughed, the sound carrying relief and release and the beginning of healing. As the sun climbed higher, painting the conference room in gold, Hunter felt something shift inside him. For 5 years, he'd lived in a carefully constructed world of just him and Clara, keeping everyone else at arm's length to avoid the pain of potential loss. But Scylla had broken through those walls, not by force, but by simply being worth the risk. "What happens now?" Clara asked. Scylla looked at them both. "Now we rebuild. The security algorithms are safe. Newman is in custody, and his financial network will be dismantled. Meridian Technologies will recover." She paused. "But I'd like you both to be part of that recovery, if you're willing." "Clara, I meant what I said about the STEM initiative. Your brilliance deserves support and recognition. And Hunter, I need someone I can trust absolutely. Someone who's proven they'll put people before profit." Hunter considered the offer, looked at his daughter's eager face, thought about the quiet life he'd built, and whether it was time to risk something new. "Let's talk about it," he said finally. "But first, we all need sleep. Real sleep in real beds, without tactical teams breaking down doors." Scylla smiled. And in that smile, Hunter saw not just the powerful CEO, but the woman beneath. Brilliant, vulnerable, brave, and maybe, just maybe, someone who could help him remember what it meant to let someone in. Outside, the city continued its morning rhythm, unaware of the drama that had played out in the glass tower. But inside that conference room, 3 people who'd started as strangers began the delicate process of becoming something more. A team, perhaps a family, certainly a bond forged in crisis that wouldn't easily break. And for the first time in years, Hunter allowed himself to believe that maybe, just maybe, the future held more than just survival. Maybe it held hope. 3 weeks passed in deceptive calm. Seth Newman sat in federal custody awaiting trial, his mercenary team scattered or imprisoned, and Meridian Technologies returned to its normal rhythm of innovation and growth. Hunter had accepted Scylla's offer to lead her personal security division, while Clara became the youngest consultant in the company's history, advising on digital security protocols. Life settled into something approaching routine. Hunter and Clara moved into a larger apartment in a secure building near Meridian's headquarters. Scylla visited often, sometimes for business discussions, but increasingly just for dinner, for conversation, for the quiet comfort of their growing connection. On a crisp November morning, Hunter was reviewing security assessments when Clara burst into his office, her face pale with urgency. "Dad, we have a problem. A big one." She pulled up files on his monitor. Encrypted communications, financial transactions, coded messages intercepted from the dark web. Hunter scanned them, his military instincts prickling with recognition. "This is Apex Strategic Solutions," Clara said. "The same mercenary group Newman hired. They're active again, and look at the target dossier." Hunter's blood ran cold as he saw the surveillance photos. Scylla entering Meridian Technologies, Clara walking to school, himself at a coffee shop. They'd all been watched, cataloged, studied with professional precision. "When were these taken?" Hunter demanded. "Yesterday, all of them." Clara pulled up more data. "Newman's arrest didn't end this, Dad. It just made someone else take control. Someone with deeper pockets and a longer memory." Hunter immediately called Scylla's office. Her assistant answered, voice tight with worry. Mr. Tate, Ms. Harmon left for a meeting at Catalyst Foundation headquarters an hour ago. She should have arrived by now, but she's not answering her phone. Every instinct Hunter had screamed danger. He grabbed his jacket, motioning for Clara to follow. Call Detective Walsh. Tell her Scylla's missing. Send her Catalyst Foundation's address. They reached the parking garage at a run. Hunter's phone buzzed with an incoming message from an unknown number. A video file. Against his better judgment, he opened it. The screen showed Scylla in what looked like an empty warehouse, seated in a chair with her hands bound. She appeared unharmed but frightened. A distorted voice spoke over the video. Mr. Tate, your interference cost certain parties a substantial investment. Seth Newman was merely a contractor. We are the clients, and we don't accept failure. Ms. Harmon has information we require. The master encryption keys to Meridian's quantum security system. She will provide them, or she will serve as an example of what happens when people obstruct our business interests. You have 4 hours to deliver the keys to the location we're sending. Come alone, or she dies. The video cut out. Hunter's hands trembled with barely controlled rage. Dad, this is a trap, Clara said. They want you isolated so they can eliminate both of you. I know, Hunter replied grimly. But we don't have a choice. Get Kiana and pull those encryption keys. Then contact Detective Walsh and Alec. Tell them everything. He paused, meeting his daughter's frightened eyes. And Clara, if something goes wrong, if I don't come back, you know what to do. All the evidence, all the backups, everything we've gathered, you make sure it reaches the right people. Dad, no. Yes, Hunter said firmly but gently. I need you to be strong now, like your mother would have been. Can you do that? Clara's jaws set with determination that matched his own. I can, but you better come back. I will, Hunter promised, though he had no idea if he could keep it. The address came through, an abandoned shipyard on the industrial waterfront, far from witnesses or help. Hunter checked his equipment, knowing he was walking into an ambush, but seeing no other path forward. Because some people, he'd learned, were worth any risk. And Scylla Harmon had become one of them. The Harbor Point shipyard stretched along the waterfront like a graveyard of rust and decay. Massive cranes loomed against the gray sky, their skeletal frames casting twisted shadows across acres of cracked concrete. Hunter approached on foot, having parked his truck a quarter-mile away, and circled through the perimeter to assess the tactical situation. His earpiece crackled softly. Clara's voice, calm despite the fear he knew she felt. Dad, thermal imaging shows 8 heat signatures in the main warehouse. Scylla's in the center, 6 hostiles positioned around the perimeter, and 1 more on the catwalk above. Detective Walsh has teams staging 3 blocks away, waiting for your signal. Copy that, Hunter murmured. Remember, no matter what happens, you stay at the command post. Promise me. I promise, Clara said, though he could hear the reluctance. Hunter carried the encrypted drive containing Meridian security keys, or at least a sophisticated fake that Kiana had prepared. The real keys were safely locked in systems only Scylla could access. But the mercenaries didn't know that. The warehouse's main door hung open, an invitation and a threat. Hunter entered, every sense heightened. The interior was vast and empty except for support columns and the lingering smell of machine oil. In the center, illuminated by weak daylight filtering through broken skylights, sat Scylla. She looked exhausted, but unharmed, her eyes widening as she saw him. Hunter, no, you shouldn't have come. Couldn't really leave you here, Hunter replied, scanning the shadows. That would be bad for team morale. A slow clap echoed through the warehouse. From behind a support column stepped a woman Hunter hadn't expected. Lila Curtis, who'd been introduced as Meridian's new board member just 2 weeks ago. She wore tactical gear now and carried herself with military bearing. "Mr. Tate, your reputation is well deserved," Lila said. "Former Force Recon, distinguished service record, and an inconvenient habit of interfering in other people's business. You planted yourself on Meridian's board?" Hunter said, pieces clicking into place. "Newman was the distraction while you positioned yourself inside." "Seth was useful but sloppy," Lila confirmed. "His emotional vendetta made him predictable. Our organization prefers patience and precision. We've spent years positioning assets throughout the security industry. Meridian's quantum encryption threatens a very lucrative status quo. Certain clients prefer vulnerabilities they can exploit." "You're selling access to compromised systems," Scylla said with disgust. "Corporate espionage as a service." "We prefer to think of it as market efficiency," Lila replied. "Now, Mr. Tate, the encryption keys. Place them on the floor and step back." Hunter held up the drive. "First, you release Ms. Harmon." Lila smiled coldly. "That's not how this works. You're in no position to negotiate." "Actually," Hunter said, "I am. Because in about 30 seconds, every exit from this warehouse will be covered by NYPD tactical teams. Your people on the perimeter are already being detained. And that sniper you have on the catwalk? He's got 3 laser sights pointed at his head right now." Lila's expression flickered with doubt. She touched her earpiece, listening to reports that confirmed Hunter's claims. Her tactical advantage was evaporating. "You're bluffing," she said, but uncertainty crept into her voice. "Am I? Check your south exit." Lila gestured to one of her mercenaries, who moved to investigate. Moments later, his voice came over her radio. "Contact. Multiple police units. We're surrounded." Clara's voice in Hunter's ear, triumphant. "Dad, Walsh just gave the green light. They're moving in." Everything happened at once. Lila lunged for Scylla, trying to use her as a shield, but Hunter was already moving. He covered the distance in 4 strides, intercepting Lila with a tackle that sent them both crashing into the concrete. They fought with professional efficiency, each move calculated and precise. Lila was good, her training evident. But Hunter fought with something beyond technique. He fought with purpose, a strike to her solar plexus, a sweep that took her legs, and finally, a control hold that immobilized her as SWAT teams poured through every entrance, weapons raised, commands echoing through the warehouse. "Clear, clear, all hostiles down." Hunter released Lila into waiting officers and ran to Scylla. He cut her restraints with a tactical knife, helped her stand on shaking legs. "You came for me," she said, her voice breaking. "Always," Hunter replied simply. As officers secured the scene and paramedics checked everyone over, Detective Walsh approached with grim satisfaction. "We've been tracking Curtis's organization for 2 years. Thanks to the evidence your daughter compiled and your testimony, we just took down their entire East Coast operation. 16 arrests, 3 countries involved, and enough evidence to put them away for decades." Hunter found Clara at the command post, monitoring everything from a mobile unit. She threw her arms around him, and he held her tight, feeling the fear finally drain away. "We did it, Dad," she whispered. "No, sweetheart, you did it. None of this would have worked without your brilliance." Scylla joined them, and without hesitation, pulled them both into an embrace. Standing there in the cold November air, surrounded by police vehicles and the wreckage of a conspiracy, Hunter felt something shift fundamentally. They weren't just allies anymore. they were family. The Meridian Technologies auditorium gleamed with afternoon sunlight streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows. 200 employees, board members, and invited press filled the seats. Their attention focused on the stage where Scylla Harmon stood at a podium bearing the company logo. Hunter sat in the front row beside Clara, both of them uncomfortable with the attention, but present because Scylla had insisted. Detective Walsh sat nearby, along with Kiana Ford and Alec Jennings, whose head wound had healed to a faint scar. 3 weeks ago, Scylla began, her voice clear and steady. Meridian Technologies faced an existential threat, not from market competition or technological disruption, but from organized criminals who sought to weaponize the very security systems we've built to protect people. They failed, and they failed because of courage that came from unexpected places. She gestured toward Hunter and Clara. Hunter Tate is a former Marine who now builds furniture and, until recently, worked occasional security shifts to support his family. His daughter, Clara, is a 15-year-old high school student with an extraordinary gift for seeing patterns others miss. Neither of them sought recognition or reward. They simply saw something wrong and refused to look away. The audience applauded, but Scylla raised a hand for silence. I asked them here today, not just to thank them, though they have my eternal gratitude. I asked them here to announce a change in how Meridian Technologies thinks about security, community, and responsibility. She clicked a remote, and the screen behind her displayed a new logo: the Meridian Foundation for Technology Ethics. We're establishing a foundation with an initial endowment of $50 million, Scylla continued. Its mission is threefold. First, to provide scholarships and mentorship for young people like Clara, who show exceptional promise in technology fields. Second, to support veterans transitioning to civilian careers by offering training, resources, and opportunities in the tech sector. And third, to fund independent research into the ethical implications of security technology, ensuring that what we build protects people rather than enabling those who would harm them. The applause this time was thunderous. Clara's eyes were wide with surprise, while Hunter felt a lump form in his throat. Scylla wasn't finished. Hunter Tate has agreed to serve as the Foundation's Director of Security Ethics, bringing his unique perspective on both protection and principle. Clara Tate will be our youngest advisory board member, helping guide scholarship programs and technical education initiatives. And I hope, with their help, we can ensure that Meridian Technologies never forgets that our greatest asset isn't our algorithms or our market position. It's our commitment to doing what's right, even when it's difficult. She stepped away from the podium and approached Hunter and Clara directly. You saved my life twice. You saved this company. But more than that, you reminded me why I built Meridian in the first place. To make the world a little safer, a little better. Thank you for that gift. The standing ovation lasted 3 minutes. Reporters surged forward with questions, but Scylla's security team, now led by Alec, efficiently managed the crowd. Later, in the quiet of Scylla's office, the three of them sat together, watching the sun set over the harbor. The media coverage was already spreading across news networks. Single father and teen daughter thwart corporate espionage ring. From carpenter to hero, the Hunter Tate story. 15-year-old genius helps take down international criminal organization. This is going to change everything, Clara said, scrolling through her phone where college recruiters and tech companies were already sending messages. Only if you let it, Hunter replied gently. You're still 15. You still have time to just be a teenager, to figure out who you want to be without all this pressure. Scylla nodded agreement. The The foundation will be here when you're ready, Clara. No rush, no expectations. You've already done more than anyone should have to do at your age. Clara smiled at them both. I know, but Mom used to say that gifts come with responsibility. If I can help other kids who love technology, who see patterns and possibilities, shouldn't I? Your mother was right, Hunter said softly, and she'd be so proud of you. Not just for your brilliance, but for your heart. As darkness fell and the city lights began to sparkle like scattered diamonds, Scylla moved to stand beside Hunter at the window. Their hands found each other naturally, fingers intertwining with an ease that spoke of something deeper than gratitude or partnership. I was thinking, Scylla said quietly, that maybe it's time I stopped working 70-hour weeks and started remembering there's a life beyond quarterly reports and board meetings. Hunter squeezed her hand gently. I was thinking the same thing. Clara and I have been a team of two for a long time. Maybe it's time we considered expanding the roster. Clara looked up from her phone, a knowing smile playing at her lips. Are you two finally admitting you like each other? Because honestly, it's been pretty obvious for weeks. They laughed together, the sound carrying relief and joy and the promise of something new beginning. Outside, the city continued its eternal rhythm. But inside that office, three people who'd found each other through crisis were discovering what came next. Not just safety or success, but genuine connection, chosen family, and hope for a future built on more than survival. It was, Hunter thought, exactly what Elena would have wanted for them. Not to forget her, but to honor her memory by continuing to live, to love, to build something beautiful from the ashes of loss. And for the first time in 5 years, he allowed himself to believe that beautiful things were still possible. 6 months later, the first Saturday of spring arrived with gentle warmth and a sky so blue it seemed impossible. Hunter stood on the deck of Scylla's newly purchased sailboat, anchored in a quiet cove 30 miles from the city. The Meridian Foundation was thriving. Clara had been accepted to every university she'd applied to, and the criminals who'd threatened them were serving lengthy prison sentences. But today wasn't about any of that. Today was simply about being together. Clara emerged from below deck carrying a tray of sandwiches, her hair sun-bleached and her face relaxed in a way Hunter hadn't seen in years. She'd grown taller over the winter, more confident, more herself. The trauma of their ordeal had left marks, certainly, but it had also revealed strength neither of them had known she possessed. Scylla's on a work call, Clara announced with mock exasperation. I thought this was supposed to be a no-work weekend. Old habits, Hunter replied with a smile. Give her 5 minutes, then we'll stage an intervention. They sat together in comfortable silence, watching seabirds wheel overhead. The sailboat rocked gently with the rhythm of small waves, a peaceful motion that seemed to wash away the lingering tension of the past months. Dad, Clara said after a while, I've been thinking about Mom a lot lately. Hunter's heart tightened, but he kept his voice steady. Yeah? What about her? About how she'd feel about all this. About Scylla, about the foundation, about us building this new life. Clara paused, choosing her words carefully. I think she'd be happy. Not because she's been replaced, because no one could ever replace her, but because we're not just surviving anymore. We're living again. Hunter's eyes stung with sudden tears. You really think so? I know. So, Clara said firmly. Mom always said that love doesn't divide, it multiplies. Loving Scylla doesn't mean loving Mom any less. It just means our family is growing in a direction Mom would have wanted. Before Before Hunter could respond, Scylla emerged from below, looking apologetic. "Sorry, that was the university president about the new scholarship program, but I'm officially off duty now." She joined them on the deck, settling naturally beside Hunter with his arm around her shoulders. Over the months, they'd moved slowly, carefully, building a relationship on a foundation of trust and shared experience. There'd been no dramatic declarations, just a gradual intertwining of lives that felt inevitable and right. "Clara was just telling me her mother would approve of all this," Hunter said. Scylla's expression softened. "I hope so. I never want to be someone who makes you forget her." She was clearly an extraordinary woman who raised an extraordinary daughter. She was, Clara agreed. But she also believed that life should be lived fully, without fear. And I think that's what we're finally doing. The afternoon drifted by in gentle conversation and comfortable silences. They talked about Clara's college plans, about the Foundation's expanding programs, about Hunter's idea to write a book about his experiences for veterans transitioning to civilian life. But mostly they simply enjoyed being together. This unlikely family forged not by blood, but by choice and courage. As sunset approached, painting the sky in shades of amber and rose, Hunter found himself thinking about the journey that had brought them here. A single moment of decision at a charity gala, refusing to look away when 4 men moved with deadly intent. Everything that followed, all the danger and discovery and growth, had spiraled outward from that one choice. "What are you thinking about?" Scylla asked, reading his contemplative expression. "About how quickly everything can change," Hunter replied. 6 months ago, I was building furniture and working occasional security jobs, trying to keep life small and manageable. Now I'm directing a foundation, writing a book, and—" He paused, looking at Scylla with unmistakable affection. "Falling in love with a brilliant CEO who happens to have terrible taste in sailing metaphors." Scylla laughed. "My sailing metaphors are perfect, thank you very much." "They're really not," Clara interjected with a grin. "Dad's right. Your nautical knowledge is embarrassingly limited for someone who bought a boat." "That's why I have you two," Scylla said warmly. "To keep me honest and teach me important things like the difference between starboard and port." As the sun touched the horizon, Clara stood and raised her water bottle in a toast. "To new beginnings," she said, "and to the family we choose." Hunter and Scylla joined her, their bottles clinking softly in the twilight. "To new beginnings," they echoed. The first stars appeared as darkness gathered, tiny points of light in the vast expanse above. The sailboat rocked gently at anchor, a small vessel of safety and love in an uncertain world. And inside that circle of light and warmth, 3 people who'd found each other through crisis discovered what came after survival: joy, connection, and the courage to believe that the best days might still lie ahead. Hunter pulled both Clara and Scylla close, feeling complete in a way he'd thought impossible after Elena's death. The pain of loss would always be there, a scar on his heart that would never fully fade. But scars were proof of healing, evidence that something broken had been made whole again. "Dad," Clara said quietly, "thank you." "For what, sweetheart?" "For being brave enough to help someone that night. For teaching me that the right thing is worth doing, even when it's scary. For showing me that it's okay to build something new while still honoring what we lost." Hunter kissed the top of her head, unable to speak past the emotion in his throat. Scylla's hand found his, their fingers intertwining with practiced ease. "Thank you both," she said, "for reminding me that some things are more valuable than any algorithm or market position. Like courage and kindness and the miracle of finding people who see you, really see you, and choose to stay. The night deepened around them, but inside their small circle, warmth and light endured. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new responsibilities, new adventures. But tonight was simply about being together, this improbable family built on trust and tested by fire. And as Hunter looked at the two most important people in his world, he understood with perfect clarity what his late wife had tried to teach him all those years ago. That love, real love, wasn't about holding on so tightly that nothing could change. It was about having the courage to let life unfold, to embrace new possibilities, and to trust that the heart was big enough to hold both memory and hope. The future stretched before them like the dark ocean, vast and unknown. But they would navigate it together, guided by the stars and by the unwavering certainty that whatever storms might come, they had each other. And that, Hunter thought, as he held his family close beneath the wheeling constellations, was more than enough. It was everything. Up next, you've got two more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.